Hey guys, I'm back with another video. I decided to take a break from these videos, but I'm now back after a few of you have reached out to me and asked for more videos, and I really appreciate that you guys find these helpful. So in this video, I'm going to talk about my first semester as a junior in the semester of fall 2018. So let's dive right in. So starting with this video, I'll be changing a few aesthetics up in hopes of making the slides more attractive and less boring. So you can see here a screenshot of my weekly schedule for my fall junior year. And I took these classes that you can see on the screen, so Bio, Animal Phys, EECS 311, EECS 320, 230, and TechCom, and this totaled to about 16 credits, which is a course load that I'm pretty much used to at this point. So now, in terms of extracurriculars, I participated in student orgs, which took about 4 hours a week. The details I won't really go into because that's just a lot. I was also a peer advisor as a part-time job, and that took about 3 hours a week. And lastly, I was a paid research assistant during the fall semester because of a few scheduling issues and there were a few problems within the lab itself. I was only able to participate about 3 hours a week. But that changed for my second semester, but that's for another video. Alright, let's talk about Bio 225. So this is animal physiology. There were two professors who taught the class. Professor Xu taught the first half of the semester, and I gave him a score of 8 out of 10. And Professor Hume was 6 out of 10. And I came out with an A- in the class. So there were 4 exams, and that's basically the entire grade. They were out of 400 points, 100 points each, and you can see in the parentheses those were my grades for each exam. And I thought they were on a scale of 0 to 10, or 1 to 10, there were difficulty of 6. And you can see the averages. And to me, really, studying the exam was just reading the notes, going back through the slides, taking my notes and the slide notes, and sort of condensing it into like this one big like 10-15 page document, and I would just go through and quiz myself basically on my knowledge. There were no clickers and discussion. It was pure lecture, and the lectures were recorded, and I would say that I would give them a lecture grading of about 7 out of 10. Professor Xu was definitely the better professor in terms of being able to engage with the audience and just better at explaining. And there were practice exams, and I would give them a helpfulness score of 8 out of 10. Office hours are also helpful. I only went to Professor Xu's because Professor Hume's were conflicting with my schedule. And there were review lectures the day of the exam, but because they were the day of the exam, and usually since lectures are literally 1 hour, I gave them a score of a 5 out of 10 because they weren't really that helpful. I also participated in SLC, and to me they were mainly just make sure that I understood the concepts, because I find that if I'm able to explain to other students the concept, that means that I'm proficient in that topic. Otherwise, I would say SLC is also helpful for anyone who isn't familiar with the subject. That is totally fine as well. Now moving on to EECS 311. So, EECS 311 is analog circuits, and the professor was Professor Michael Flynn, and I gave him a score of 10 out of 10 because I would have to say he's probably the best professor I have had in my college career thus far. He's extremely patient, and he really takes the time to make sure that the students are learning. And during lectures, he will even have practice problems, and he will give us about 5 minutes when to do the problems, and he will be walking around the class to make sure that to get a sense of how everyone is doing, and if anyone is struggling with a certain topic or part of the problem, he will expand on that a little bit more for another couple minutes. And I came out of this class with a score of an A. So the lectures were not recorded, but I gave them a score of 9 because they were really just engaging, and even though it was 9-10 in the morning, I was wide awake and willing to listen to everything that he had to say. There were labs, 30% of the grade. Again, they were at a score of 9. The GSI extremely helpful, and on top of that, I think this is the one class that's really really valuable in terms of circuit design, because for the first 4 labs you are characterizing and analyzing and small design components to the first 4 labs, while the last lab was a pure design project where you're given a spec sheet of, say, power consumption is X milliwatts and et cetera, and you're asked to design a multi-stage amplifier. And I think that was really valuable and really cool. There were 3 exams. Midterm 1 is 15% of your grade, midterm 2 20%, final was 20% of your grade. I gave them a score of 8 in terms of how helpful they were to gauge my understanding of the topic and how difficult they were. I would probably say they were definitely on more of a difficult side. If you didn't know your material, you definitely wouldn't have done well. Averages were listed. I don't have the final exam average, but I would imagine it was 70 something. There were 8 problem sets, 15% of your grade, and I gave them a score of 8 in terms of how helpful they were in terms of preparing me for the exams and understanding the material. And office hours, both for the GSI and the professor, were also extremely helpful. They were patient, and they allowed you, they won't just tell you the answers, they will allow you to learn by yourself. EECS 320 is semiconductors. I have Professor Forrest. I gave him a score out of 7. Came out with an A. That was not easy, and I'll tell you why. So the lectures, they were not recorded. Bummer. The slides were not annotated afterwards, like it was for 311. So that's another bummer. So I gave the lectures a score of 6. Discussion sections were a 7. There was one GSI who wasn't very knowledgeable or really good at discussion sections, so everyone just eventually migrated to the other GSI section. But that GSI was phenomenal. And honestly, I think most of us passed the class because of that really helpful GSI. There were no labs for this class. The book is necessary for both reading, especially since the professor wasn't the greatest in terms of the lectures. But it was also needed because of homework, which is 25% of your grade. There were 3 exams. 2 of the midterms were each 20%, totaling 40% of your grade. Final was 35% of your grade, and difficulty-wise, they were at a solid 9. Class averages, as you can see, were relatively low. To be honest, for the second exam, they actually ignored, better said, they were much more lenient with partial credit, and that's why the average was so high. Office hours are a must. They were really helpful in terms of understanding the lecture material, and so I gave them a score of 9. There were no practice exams, especially for a hard class. It was really, really disappointing, but other than that, most of us managed to come out, and I came out with an A, and I'm really proud of that. EECS 230, so I have Professor Lee. I came out with an A, and I would say Professor Lee is pretty good. I will give her a score of 9. The lectures, they were not recorded, and they were a little bit fast, but they were still really well explained at certain points. So I gave it a score of 7.5. Maybe it could deserve an 8.5, but let's go with the 7.5 for now. The discussion sections were not that helpful. It was just literally sort of explain the same problems as introduced in lecture. So I gave it a score of 6. There were 4 labs, so you didn't have to show up to lab every week. But to me, difficulty-wise, it was a 6, and helpfulness in terms of understanding material, 6. There were 20 homeworks. It sounds like a lot, but each homework had like 2 or 3 questions from the book. 15% of your grade. 4 pop quizzes, at least for me, there might be more or less depending on the semester, and those were 10% of your grade. There were 3 exams, 2 midterms, and 1 final. There were difficulty of a 7. Class averages are not available because for some reason they didn't post the actual grades on to Canvas. Professor Lee was kind enough to have a makeup or a sort of a redo exam for exam 1, and that score, if it was higher, you will have that higher score. If it was lower, then you will have your actual exam 1 first time that you took it, that score as your exam 1 score. So that was really nice. But afterwards, she didn't really do that. But I think it was just being nice for the first exam. But she gave us practice exams, and those were really helpful, and I gave them a score of 8. Office hours, I never really attended any besides for lab, so I would say it's not necessary, but that is dependent on the person. Now, very lastly, TechCom 300. I had Amy Pavlov. She was really nice, and she was informative, and gave relatively good lectures. So I gave her a 9, and I came out with an A. This class isn't really that hard if you put in the effort. The lectures were about an 8. They were helpful, and you had small assignments, 1 presentation, and 1 final quote-unquote paper. It wasn't really like that formal. It was more of an engineering technical report as expected in this class. So I gave them difficulty of about 7. It should be about like 4 or 3, but 7 because of that presentation and paper. This class is mainly just about like resume writing, cover letters, how to interview, etc. Okay, so now as a summary, this semester, my fall semester for junior year was pretty much was much better compared to my sophomore year winter. If you guys had watched that video, and this was also the first semester that I started taking more technical classes in electrical engineering, such as EECS 311, and I really loved that, especially with a really good professor. But as I mentioned in a couple slides, the first few slides, I wasn't able to do as much research as I wanted since time and lab issues sort of arose. But overall, this was a really good semester, and it was filled with knowledge and good experiences, and I think that really helped me prepare for my internship that I have this summer. So for anyone else considering a similar workload for their semester, know that it's not impossible. There's a few things I have to be careful about in terms of professors. Alright, thank you so much. That's all I have for today. If you like this video, be sure to check out my other videos and subscribe for more. Thank you.